Charles, we've got a very exciting program today. We're joined by congressional candidate Laura Loomer. Laura, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great.
Boy, Laura, you are an inspiration to so many people for the gumption you have, for what you're accomplishing. I watched that interview, I think it was a CBS fellow who's a weasel in my opinion, and the way in which you laid out your platform, what you stand for, the way you pushed him back so elegantly, was amazing.
Well, yeah, I really appreciate that, and it's really exciting. You can hear all the energy here on the ground. I'm live from the polls in Florida, and early voting is taking place here till November 1st. We have 6 days left till Congresswoman Laura Loomer becomes a reality. And when I win, I'll be the youngest woman ever elected to Congress, and it's historic because, the President of the United States just voted for me on Saturday at the same polling location at which I voted for him. And that officially makes me the youngest congressional candidate that has ever been voted for by a sitting president. And it's the first time that a sitting U.S. president has voted in the state of Florida as a Floridian. So we're making history. It's also the first time that a deplatformed candidate, well, any candidate for Congress has ever run being deplatformed. I'm the only deplatformed, banned, censored candidate in the nation. And when I win my race, I'll also be the first deplatformed member of Congress. Sorry, something just blew in my eye. But we're making history on all fronts here, and it's an incredible grassroots campaign because, as I mentioned, I have no social media. But if you were to do an exit poll today, I'd say like 95% of the cars that are leaving, it's people who are voting for me and supporting me. And the media doesn't want to talk about it because I'm out polling Lois Frankel. I'm out raising her. I've raised over $2 million by myself with my campaign team. And we've had no help from the Republican Party. So we are going to win.
That's really impressive, Laura. Tell our viewers a little bit the key points of difference between what you stand for, representing your district, the 21st district there, and what Frankel stands for.
Well, really, it's what's representative of all the races in this country right now. It's either the survival of our country and Western civilization or the demise and downfall of America and the end of Western civilization. And so it's no longer a race between Republican or Democrat. It's no longer right or left. It's right versus wrong. And voting down ballot Republican is what is right for America right now. We're trying to preserve our constitutional values. Thank you. Woo! More people driving by. And, also with my race, it's the first time in U.S. history where two Jewish women are up against each other for a United States congressional seat. My district is the most Jewish district in the entire country. There's over 100,000 Jewish voters here. I'm a Republican Jew. I'm 27 years old. Lois Frankel's a Democrat Jew. She's 72 years old, right? It's really literally the inverse. And, I actually have a proven track record as an investigative journalist calling out corruption. Charles, you and I worked together to expose the Clintons when I was doing my What Happened Hillary Clinton tour, exposing her when I was undercover at Project Veritas. I have a proven track record of holding corrupt politicians accountable, fighting for the truth, calling out Islamic terrorism, condemning Jew hatred. And meanwhile, Lois Frankel is the epitome of a self-hating Jew. She's one of 28 Jews in Congress, and she refuses to call out the jihadist Muslim Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, who hate America, who hate Jews, who hate Christians, and have a loyalty to Islam, not the United States Constitution.
I applaud you for that. Talk a little bit about the extent to which you have been canceled, and explain, if you would, to our viewers, how many different sites have canceled you and on what grounds?
So I am the most banned woman in the world, literally banned on every single social media site. It's almost, I get out of breath. I get out of breath now saying how many places I'm banned from because it's like, it's like
everywhere.
A tongue twister. It's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, PayPal, Uber, Lyft, GoFundMe, Venmo, Cash App, Periscope, Medium, Chase Bank. The list goes on and on and on and on. And it's a civil rights violation at this point in time because they're saying that they're banning me for so-called hate speech, even though the Supreme Court has found there is no such thing as hate speech. And today, we're having another one of those dog and pony circle jerk congressional hearings where you have all these loudmouth politicians talking about what they're going to do and how wrong censorship is. But what are they actually doing about it? Okay. It's been 4 years. I remember when I was in Congress, I got escorted out for confronting Jack Dorsey, and I predicted they were going to try to use big tech to steal the election. But, you have corrupt, do-nothing Democrats and corrupt, do-nothing Republicans, okay? Both of the people on both sides of the aisle are getting paid off by the big tech companies. And, they committed perjury. They lied under oath to Congress. They're censoring people. They're committing treason. They're banning conservatives and giving services to domestic and foreign terrorist organizations. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so desperately needed in Congress, because we need people who actually understand cancel culture. And unless you've been canceled yourself, you don't know what it's like. You don't know how bad the American people are suffering when their livelihoods are taken from them, or when they're shut down and they can't equally participate in the political process. And so we're gonna win.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. And equally, the people you're campaigning against specifically and generally are people who try to talk about inequality, and we have an inequality in our wealth and our incomes and stuff. And yet the very fortune that Dorsey has built and Zuckerberg has built is built upon the premise that the user doesn't understand the value of the information they're providing to the platform. And these people who, I don't know if you saw Jack Dorsey today, he looks like Osama bin Laden with that weird beard. I mean, they're billionaires off the suckers who are in the platform, putting very valuable information in it, but not benefiting themselves. There's way too much power these people have.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that he looks like Osama bin Laden, because, if you recall, the reason why I was banned from Twitter is because I exposed Ilhan Omar. And Twitter privately met with Islamic terrorists from CARE who requested that I be banned. And there's been a lot of speculation over the last couple years whether Jack Dorsey himself is actually an Islamic convert. This is something that people have been discussing. And so you kind of have to wonder, what is a billionaire executive of one of the most powerful tech companies in the world doing, having backdoor private meetings with Islamic terrorist organizations? Why is it that if you're a Trump supporter, you're more likely to get banned than ISIS, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Muslim Brotherhood, all of who have accounts on Twitter?
Yeah, it's outrageous. And it's not simply banned, it's also suppressed.
Why do Islamic jihadists have Twitter accounts, but Trump supporters can't?
Exactly. And it's also the problem of being suppressed, not simply banned. Being banned is awful, but they're also suppressing conservatives.
Well, it's more than just Facebook and Twitter. Like I said, it's crossing over into the payment processors and the banks and the financial institutions, and people are getting fired, they're getting canceled, they're getting kicked out of school. So, I know what that's like. I got kicked out of college too. So I know cancel culture better than most people, which is why I'm determined to get to Congress so we can fix this.
Well, I
believe it's the number one most important issue in our country right now, because if you destroy free speech, you destroy the bedrock of our society and the First Amendment in our Constitution, which we're supposed to protect. And if you destroy the First Amendment, you destroy the entire Constitution.
I agree. Well, talk to us a little bit about the percentages in your district. What percentage turnout in the last election, and what does it look like now, and what's the makeup of the people turning out?
Look, a lot of people want to crunch numbers and whatnot, but I wouldn't say that the data is really fair, because my opponents ran unopposed last election cycle. So there really isn't like a fair set of data to really compare the numbers to, because how do you tell, right, when somebody runs unopposed? And then the guy who ran against her in 2016, he barely raised any money, like $50,000, right? I've raised $2 million, and he didn't really launch a full-blown campaign. We have a massive grassroots campaign here on the ground. I've been endorsed by President Trump. It's a presidential election year. We've raised over $2 million. People in all 50 states are donating. We're getting international and national press coverage. I mean, it's the most exciting congressional race in the country right now. It is the most hotly watched and talked about race in the world, besides the presidential race.
Fantastic.
And certainly, Laura, people who are not in Florida's 21st district can also support your campaign by going to Laura Loomer for Congress and tapping on the donate button. There's still time to help Laura combat the squad and all of this horrendous censorship. And, Laura, just to get back for one moment to what you were saying about Jack Dorsey, I don't know if a lot of people saw this, but there was a meeting in Saudi Arabia between the King of Saudi Arabia and Gina Haspel, the director of the CIA. Shortly after that meeting, the Washington Post announced that former Twitter employees were charged with spying for Saudi Arabia. So there's a lot of things going on.
Also, too, the largest stock shareholder of Twitter is a guy by the name of
Walid bin Talal.
Walid bin Talal, of course. So one of the Saudi billionaires. So there's a lot of Muslim influence in big tech. I'm banned from Uber. The CEO of Uber is a Muslim. There really is a lot. And a lot of the executives at Twitter and Google are Islamic. And so it's a national security threat when you have so much foreign interference controlling the dissemination of information and communication. We're talking about Chinese, Islamic. These are oppressive societies that don't believe in upholding human rights. They're communist societies, and they have the personal data and information of our politicians, of billions of people around the world. And the executives of these companies are doing the bidding for the Chinese and for the Islamic theocracies when they decide to say, yeah, we're going to censor content. Don't worry, we'll censor certain tweets so that we don't offend you. I mean, upholding Islamic blasphemy laws. For example, when I was on Twitter before I got banned, I would get notifications, and Michelle Malkin did too, saying that we were in violation of Pakistani Sharia law and that we should lawyer up. My tweets were also banned in Germany and France for hate speech, right? Because there you're not allowed to speak about Islamic terrorism, or else you can go to jail.
Well, talk to us for a second, Laura. I know you're pressed for time, about some of the issues that you mentioned to the CBS interviewer that you care about that people don't focus on, because I think they're important.
Well, so big tech censorship and cancel culture. Obviously, there's a lot of seniors in my district, and so I would like to make Social Security tax-free. You shouldn't have to pay taxes on your Social Security. I'm an advocate for clean water here in Florida. We're surrounded by the ocean and the Everglades, and we need to protect and preserve our water. I'm also a really big advocate and supporter of our veterans. I stand with Israel. I'm working to combat anti-Semitism. I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment. I mean, there's a lot of issues that I'm very concerned about. Law and order, protecting our police, designating Antifa and Black Lives Matter, they're domestic terrorist organizations. These are some of the things that need to be dealt with here in our community.
I suspect you also care, because we work together on it, about protecting seniors and donors to fake charities. Because that, every time you have a hurricane or whatever, gullible people will send money to fake charities.
Yeah, exactly. And that ties into a lot of the tech stuff too, because there's a lot of scams that get to go, they're online, they're on the social media sites, and these companies don't have their priorities straight. Like, they're banning people for political speech, but they should be, shutting down scams or shutting down domestic and foreign terrorist organizations. And so, people don't understand how big of a threat to not only our personal safety, our national safety, our technological safety these companies pose. And we don't have representatives who are adequately addressing it.
Now, are you getting help with the all-important actually get out the vote on election day effort? Do you have people going door to door for you?
Yeah, we've knocked on thousands of doors. As you can see now, I'm here at the polls, so we're talking to voters as they come in one by one. We've made phone calls, and really the energy on the ground is for us. Lois Frankel isn't knocking on any doors. She's not doing any campaigning, no signs, nothing.
Did you get a chance to Did you get a chance to debate her?
She refused to debate me.
Huh.
Wow. Not surprising. I mean, Laura, you are one tough customer.
She refused to debate me. Sorry for the noise. She refused to debate me, and then she said that I don't deserve to run for Congress, or people shouldn't say my name because I'm banned from Twitter. She said because I'm banned from Twitter, I should be banned from society, so nobody should say my name. She literally said that. She said that people shouldn't say my name. And so there's an interview from CBS the other night when they interviewed her, and they're like, why won't you say your opponent's name? And they're like, and then she goes, what's her name? She literally is of the belief that if you're banned from social media, your name should be banned from society.
Is her campaign also being run by Biden's campaign? I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, Biden is in support of censoring me too. His campaign issued a statement when President Trump endorsed me the day after my primary, and Joe Biden's campaign issued a statement like basically condemning me. So, but meanwhile, Joe Biden has no problem campaigning with Linda Sarsour, who hates our country and is literally like prancing around with 9/11 co-conspirators.
Wow.
Amazing, Laura. Amazing. Well, you've given us plenty of time. I know you need to get back to talking to the voters who are there clamoring to talk to you at the polls. We are sending positive energy your way and as much support as we can. We hope our viewers
Yeah, and just so you know, like, look, I'm banned on all the social media. So the District 21 includes parts of West Boca, Delray, Boynton Beach, Lantana, Lake Worth, Palm Beach Island, Mar-a-Lago, Manalapan, West Palm Beach, parts of Palm Beach, Wellington, and Green Acres. So if you live there and you're watching this, make sure you go vote for me. Or if you know people who live there, please tell them to vote for me, because we need to send a message that it's the American people who decide election winners and losers, not big tech. We cannot allow for big tech to destroy the integrity of our elections process by simply banning candidates and then saying, oh, well, you're not going to win because we say so. We need to fight back. We need to protect free speech.
Absolutely. Laura, congratulations so much on what you've achieved so far, and best of luck with the campaign. People who are in Florida's 21st district have absolutely got to get to the polls and vote for Laura Loomer. People can go to lauraloomerforcongress.com. Even if you aren't in Laura's district, you can still support this campaign, and you can support Laura by donating to the campaign. It's really important that Laura gets into Congress. We cannot let foreign influence take over the press, take over our social media, and infiltrate the government. Laura, thanks so much for taking time out of your day. Great to see you.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Laura.
Good luck. Wonderful
Bye.
to have Laura on the show there, Charles. That was a fantastic appearance.
Yeah.
And I really look forward to Laura getting into Congress.
I look forward to her swearing-in ceremony.
Exactly. I look forward to her swearing at Ilhan Omar in the elevator in Congress,
Right.
but we'll have to ask her for some insights into that. Okay, there we go. Great appearance by a running
Real.
congressional candidate. And you know what? In addition to being personal friends with and having tremendous respect for Laura, even if I didn't know her, people who come up out of their regular jobs, whether you're a journalist, whether you're a business person who owns a hair salon, and says, you know what, this is not right what's going on, and I'm going to change it. I support that fully. I mean, getting out in the street and starting fights with people and dancing around, breaking cameras and stuff, that is not what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like.
I mean, it's the female equivalent of the unmarried Mr. Smith goes to Washington. Ms. Loomer goes to Washington. But absolutely, what I admire in Laura, and I think I met her around the time I met you, or maybe, is that she is, as she mentioned, 27. I met her years ago.
And she was like 23 or 24 when we met her.
Yeah, exactly. And here's somebody who is extremely good at expressing herself, very thoughtful, a clear thinker. It's actually a miracle to me that somebody would come out of college today.
That smart.
That smart, right? Because the teachers are that stupid and that scruffy.
Well, you know that Laura initially got her taste of journalistic dissent. She tried to start a conservative club at the college she was at, and they wouldn't let her.
No.
So she started an ISIS club, and they let her do that.
That was hilarious. And then they figured out, whoops, we got to get rid of this. Yeah. But no, she is really a very strong person, and the way in which, if you watch that CBS 12 interview from a few days ago, this swarmy know-it-all interviewer feels that he's going to lead Laura down the garden path. You know, by the end of the interview, it's like, I have my clothes back and my wallet back and my credibility back.
I'll tell you, Laura Loomer is a force of nature. When she was protesting Twitter, you know, it's over here on 17th Street. Actually, I meant for us to walk by it a few times during one of our walks, but I said to her, Laura, please don't do that. I think you're going to get arrested. You could get hurt. The whole thing. I was like, if you were my sister, I would beg you not to do this. Right. But you cannot convince Laura Loomer to do anything. Laura is a force of nature. That was a successful protest. She got a lot of attention, but still blocked from Twitter. And now the New York Post, of course. It's shocking, Charles.
Yeah, I mean, this situation, you and I have been talking about this for a while, but the situation with the blocking of the Post story will be seen as the final nail in the coffin of cancel culture, of an unregulated Twitter, of unregulated social media, because it's so outrageous. If you, I think it's Cheryl Atkinson who likes to talk about the contrast. You know, something happens to Trump, compare that to if it happened to Clinton or something like that, and look at the contrast. Here we have high and mighty, pious Abdul Rahman Jack Dorsey, or whatever his name is.
Bin Dorsey.
Ben Dorsey, saying that his publicly traded, but does he have a nose ring as well?
Yes.
I didn't notice that. That's a great look, Jack.
Well, he hasn't washed his hair in days either.
I mean, this honestly, this is the kind of look you see in.
He was living in the fountain in Washington Square Park. wasn't he?
Exactly. Or you see these pictures of settlers in Utah 100 years ago. I mean, without the nose ring, but that he and Zuckerberg and the fellows at Google would have such power to determine what trends and what doesn't trend, what shows up in your phone. We've gone from a system that the founders expected, where there would be many different points of view expressed in the tabloids, the equivalent of tabloids and pamphlets and later newspapers, to now where the pipeline to the user is constricted. There are very few people decide what goes through that pipeline and what gets served up to you. I've noticed, I'm no tech expert, but I've noticed that in my Google feed, I've seemed to now be getting the consistent, I'm looking at different investment strategies and I get the same stories coming in for the same ideas. So it's very clear that based on what I look for, they then serve me up stories. And I'm sure that on our various, your various shows on YouTube, that they are doing their level best to make sure that a show that we might do that rockets at a high speed does not get served as broadly as one that might favor the Democrats. And it's outrageous, the fact that these firms have teamed with a non-charity, that being the Southern Poverty Law Center, which I've done stories about, and we think we've done shows about it. That is a diabolical fraud, that Southern Poverty Law Center. And the people they've picked to help them figure out what might constitute damaging information or authentic and what might not. There's no basis for doing that.
Well, there is. Because if you're a criminal and somebody exposes that crime, it's damaging. So that can come down.
That's right, exactly. Yeah. So, but back on this, when the first story broke in the Post.
Yes.
And that was it Thursday of last week?
I think it was more. It was over a week ago, wasn't it? I'm not sure.
I think it was just Thursday of last week. I may have it wrong, but
there's the author Emma Jo Morris is basically having a Twitter countdown of how long they've been banned. Let me grab her Twitter feed. That'll show us one.
Well, while you're doing that, so Cruz just grilled Dorsey and said, "Is that story unblocked?" And then he tried to retweet it out and found that it was blocked.
Right.
So, I found it on my Twitter feed, but what is this?
I don't know.
Trump.
She was saying how many days Jack Dorsey falsely told senators that his company lifted our ban on users tweeting articles from the post-Hunter Biden expose, despite the fact that the ban remained on one of the Post's bombshell stories and was only lifted after he made the claim.
Yeah.
He's a sketchy guy, Charles. I'm
Very
not a
sketchy.
big Jack Dorsey fan.
And he has, I think, he has two jobs, right? He's two big companies.
Well, Stripe, I think, is his other company.
So,
which is a payment processing thing.
What is this? The CEO?
Yeah. So they asked him if they had evidence that it was Russian disinformation, and Facebook guy Mark Zuckerberg said he would rely on the FBI for that. But they basically said they had no evidence. They just decided that it might be, so they'll take it down.
Right, and it's much like what happened with you with the Emmys. I mean, you're on a trajectory, as we are now going to the final days of the convention of the election. We have a dementia-ridden, dementia-addled candidate in Joe Biden, who is now at a stage where he's just barking nonsense at the sky. I mean, the guy doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We have, and he goes in his events, or Kamala's events, have 3 people on tricycles and a few journalists or whatever.
Well, he's literally got Obama out in the street shouting in a bullhorn, and people are like, "Get out of the road!"
Exactly. Versus the Trump events, which was massive, spontaneous support for the events that are scheduled, for these other satellite events. Ivanka's thing down in Florida recently was a gigantic crowd for that. You have spontaneous events of these car, whatever you call them, cavalcades, where
Caravans,
yeah, whatever, the boat things and all this stuff. It's very clear that the force is with the Trump campaign, the force is with anti-cancel culture. The force looking at Philadelphia is certainly not with these people who 10 miles from where the supposed event happened and will revisit that event are looting Walmarts and stealing sneakers and burning things and making mayhem. It turns out the guy in question who charged officers with a knife has a criminal record. I mean, this is not, we're not talking about little Bo Peep here. We're talking about a hardened criminal.
But even if he had no criminal record, in my view, if you make the decision to charge at police officers with a weapon or take a weapon from the police or fight with the police, just expect to be killed. If the police, even if you're doing nothing wrong, point a gun at you and say, get on the ground, do it.
Yeah. I'd even go back a step. I don't know what time of day it was that this happened, but there have been a number of these incidents that are occurring at 11 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock in the morning. You know, what are teenagers doing out at 1 o'clock in the morning?
Fighting the cops.
Yeah, you know, burning things down, breaking windows, etc. That's just crazy land. The only thing going back to Laura for a second, the only issue I would have with her, it's a small issue, she referred to Antifa and BLM as being organizations. Neither are organizations. They're concepts. They're not actually...
Oh, it's an idea, Charles. Well, I think when you say organization, you're thinking about it in terms of a legal sense. Laura is thinking they've organized this protest, that's the organization.
Right, but it's a stronger mallet to hit with, to just say, listen, you can't engage in criminal activity.
It's a club.
That's right. I don't even think it's a club. There are no rules.
Well,
other than now some of these.
It's a Facebook group.
Yeah, exactly. Some of these, the most recent one, I think it might have been in Philadelphia or maybe it was somewhere else. Is they're now specifically targeting white people.
What do you mean? They were doing that before, weren't
No, but they're going out of their way to find somebody white to beat up. And that is every bit as bad as if white people teamed up and tried to lynch blacks. I mean, that's just not appropriate.
Well, it's not justice, it's revenge. They keep saying no justice, no peace. They need to change that to say, this is revenge, welcome to it.
Right, exactly. So going back into the story then. So what happened was Giuliani gets approached, in my recollection, Giuliani is approached by an American operator of a computer repair shop who provides certain information, certain hard information to Giuliani and his team. They enlist Bannon, they enlist Carrick, they look at this stuff for 6 weeks to 8 weeks, and they reach a conclusion that this is explosive stuff. That's the Post story, right? That's when that comes out. But then this guy who was on Tucker last night, Bob Alinsky, he's a separate guy. Right, he was a party to these emails, but he wasn't in the original computer repair shop piece of it. He's somebody who Giuliani reports on it. This guy's name comes up. This guy is smeared, and he actually, to his great credit, he goes to Schiff and he says, "You better take that back."
Yeah, and Schiff has not done it.
Of course not, because he's a criminal, and Schiff is a criminal.
I hope he sues him for defamation, but Schiff will have immunity because he was doing it in the course of his work as a member of Congress. That's why Schiff said it.
Well, we will see what happens on all that. But here's another guy coming forward and saying, Joe Biden is a liar, his brother is a liar, Hunter is crazy. And I think we have other people. There's a guy in prison beginning to corroborate it. Giuliani says he has other witnesses. And I was looking at this and trying to tease out this story, and I want to break a little news with you, because I think you like to do that. Let's look into this Rob Walker guy. If we put Rob Walker and we put Hunter Biden and we put LinkedIn, we should get the name of his company.
Katie Dodge?
No.
Personal assistant? Good name for Hunter Biden's personal assistant. Questions on the line? Dodge it.
Well, let's just try Rob Walker and private equity or something like that.
Oh, that came up right away.
pilot growth equity. Okay, let's look at pilot growth equity. Oh, that's kind of interesting.
Right away, it's not found.
Let's try the about page. Okay, then our culture.
We love crack.
Yeah, bribes are excellent. There's a list of the team somewhere.
Naked selfies, whatever you got.
Current investments. I think at the bottom there should be.
Where's the shirt? Bizarro? What does the shirt say? Bizzabo.
Bizzabo, great name for a company. We come up with our names using crack.
Priceline plain.
They had a team page when I was looking at it.
It's strange. Contact us.
Well, let's go back and see if you hit team and what happens. But
usually it would be there in the
yeah, but see if you can get pilot growth without. Go back one to the Google, and let's just do pilot growth team and see what happens.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
all right. And we
gone.
go down the page.
No, it's gone. This is the same thing we were on before.
Is it? I don't know.
Here's what I recommend we do.
Way back?
Yeah. You go to last week, it'll have them all in there.
Exactly. As of this morning, because I looked at it this morning.
Oh. So they're just basically watching Congress and scrub-a-dub-dubbing.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Most recent one would be 21.
How about this?
Does it come up?
It's thinking about it. It's still spinning.
Still spinning. There we go.
There we go.
Okay. Does it have culture, jobs? If you keep going down the page, at the very bottom, it used to have team. Huh.
Well, let's go back a bit further. I mean, it shows these people, but doesn't say their names. So the previous snapshot for it is here.
People.
There we go. This is from August 15th, 2020. So something happened in August that caused them to want to be a little bit shy about who's involved.
Let's see.
Yeah, I guess the server that archive.org is on is not the fastest, and we've got deep state people.
All right, well, let's try it a different way. If we go into, let's go back into Google, and let's do Rob Walker, or let's do what was this? Julianne Smoot, Julianne Smoot, Smoot.
With Rob Walker or by himself?
Yeah.
You got Juliana Smoot.
That's it. I can't see any of this. Yeah.
There you go.
Our team. Here you go.
Ah, good memory.
Let's see.
Strangely, it seems scrubbed, Charles. That's interesting. Our team. Juliana Smoot, portfolio specialist. Rob Walker, co-founder and managing director.
Try it with Rob Walker in quotes. Yeah, this is the page. Here's the page, Julianne Smoot's page in team. Now look at that. Bring that page up a little bit. Look at that. I mean, that's quite an outfit for the head of business development.
But when we click on it, it doesn't take us to, it's been removed.
Yeah, as of this morning, because I literally was looking at this morning, the page.
Wow. Well, that's why they invented screenshots.
And so this company, Pilot Growth, it turns out, if we go into Rob Walker LinkedIn, let's see if that has been scrubbed as well. Now, Walker is a very common name, but
this is it?
Yep. Okay. Let's go slowly here. I don't want to give it away quite yet. So Rob Walker's a very common name. And at Yale, there were quite a few fancy Walkers, including George Herbert Walker Bush, et cetera. The Walker family is quite wealthy. And so my original thinking was maybe this is a Bush person And maybe this really is evidence of a uniparty swamp here. Until I went down the page of this here, look where he went to college.
Yes, I just noticed that.
Yeah, that's not University of Arkansas at Yaleville. It's University of Arkansas at Fayetteville. And if we go down his trajectory, okay, he's been in this job since January 2011 at Pilot Growth Equity, whatever that is. Oh, you can't see the full profile.
I think it's because I'm not signed in on this, but let me see if we can do that.
But bottom line, this is a guy who I believe got his early start working for the Clintons politically. You don't have to go into just, he did a lot of political work, as did most of these people. They're either the Obama campaign, the Clinton campaigns, or whatever, and then they migrate into this type of a firm, much like a Teneo, where you've got a bunch of younger people who claim that they're going to bring the vision required to take a company from whatever it is to a better company, or a charity from whatever it is to a better charity. And when you look at their experience, it's basically pretty empty. It's I'm somebody who joined a political campaign. I swore my allegiance to the Clintons or the Obamas. We got lucky and we won. And so then we milked those political relationships as much as possible, grifting away, maybe via a foundation, maybe not, maybe the old-fashioned way of just using the fact that you can have a big title out of the Clinton administration or the Obama administration to shoehorn your way in to a plum job somewhere else. I mean, this is the opposite of a public servant.
Yeah.
And this is the firm that was conspiring with Hunter Biden and the Biden family to concoct these crazy-ass deals involving the Chinese Communist Party. And I bring this up to say, we have never gotten to the bottom of how the Chinese penetrated the Communist Party.
No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. Penetrated into the fabric of the establishment around the world and in this country. But when we look into it, the major overtures from China started early on in Arkansas, in part, I believe, because Arkansas is a state that is controlled by a very small number of people.
Stevens.
And the Walmart family and the Dillard's family and a few other families, and the Rockefellers. Oh. And because it has a big rice operation. And,
rice?
Yeah, Arkansas has big production of rice.
Yeah, Larry Nichols used to speak about rice.
Yeah, I think Chinese people eat rice.
No, but I mean, in other words, there was some kind of deal made with rice where either they were sending rice somewhere that they didn't need or bringing rice.
So they decided, I was on the show with him when he reminded us of this. I'd heard it from other people as well. When time came to try to provide aid to Haiti, which apparently had its other source of rice, they made sure that Arkansas rice flooded into Haiti and destroyed the local production of rice or whatever. But you start in the 70s, frankly, when the Chinese first reached into Little Rock, when there still was a very, not hot, but a Cold War between the Communist Chinese government and the United States. Over time, many relationships were brought together, Chinese into Arkansas, Chinese into America. But by 1988, 89, as we've talked about in the show, the Chinese internal market was tiny. The number of Chinese people was massive, so consumption and investment per capita was very low. And here today, we're serious. People in big tech and in the grifter portion of Washington, D.C., which leaves out very little, and the grifter portion in New York and the city of London, are all kowtowing to a country that has piled on massive debt, that is enslaving Muslim and Christian minorities, that is using slave labor to produce products, that is stealing our technology, that is not negotiating in good faith, that is building up militarily. And you look at this behavior now, you're encouraging it at a time when we're really powerful. What do you think they're going to be like 10 years from now if we let them get away with this? And people like Laura Loomer and you and me and Bannon and others, and Gordon Chang, who we've fortunately had on this show, have been warning about this for a long time. Instead, we hear nothing out of what. Fred Thompson, remember when he was a senator, he warned about this in '96.
But I could never tell if he was in Congress or a movie.
Or in Law and Order.
Because he's an actor and a Congress. I was like, wait a minute, isn't
Senator,
yeah.
Yeah, he was. But remember, he before the '96 election, he alleged that he'd found massive evidence of Chinese infiltration into the U.S.
Oh.
And then that all went away. It never. He had great fanfare. He claims he had evidence, and then nothing ever happened. And then it got worse. Worse under Clinton in his second term. Even worse under Bush's 2 terms. Then Obama comes in, and he needed to have. Gumby wasn't available as his vice president, so he got Dumby, Joe Biden, to be his vice president. And he's out on point in China. And his way of getting on point, evidently, is to get a crackhead, namely his son, to serve as a bagman with his brother and go around to people he was supposed to negotiate with and misprice his bribes. I mean, somebody who was a straight-up crook would have said, wait a minute, vice president's a pretty valuable job. I mean, I should...
More than $5 million. How about 500?
Well, no, exactly. Instead of selling the United States out for $100 million, let's say he got, or even $1 billion if you want to say it's that much, he should be pricing that thing in the trillions. He should have been saying, listen, I ain't selling my country out for $1 billion.
But what do you do with that? I mean, how are you going to launder all that money? There's only so much crack he can smoke, Charles.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I suppose he could have a few mistresses. And
$1 billion worth of crack. I just have no concept. See, in those videos, they show Hunter Biden smoking something. This is a question for the audience. I thought when you smoke crack, there's some, like either you flip out or pass out. He's just like smoking crack, going about his day.
The insidious part of crack, as I understand it, is it's changed the makeup of it over time. But the insidious part is like the first time you take it, it's like a whole body orgasm. It's just incredible experience, supposedly. And the insidious part of it is every subsequent time you take it, it's not quite as good. And it sort of decays, which makes you more and more interested in having more.
Chasing it.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, there's no good drug to be addicted to, but this is a horrible one. And I'm also told by friends who've had security clearances that depending on the type of security clearance you hold, you have to be interviewed typically at least once a year to keep that high-level security clearance. And here we have, the Vice President of the United States presumably has a pretty high security clearance, and he's palling around at the Chateau Marmont or wherever he was in Los Angeles with Hunter and his brother, concocting deals with this Bobulinski guy who, maybe he's a saint, but I don't understand how you carve time out of your busy day as vice president to go meet some guy in a bar to talk about how your crackhead son is going to be doing deals with Russia and this and how your crackhead son...
Oh, he couldn't make it. He's in the room taking naked selfies.
Right. Exactly.
Weighing crack.
FaceTiming with his niece, 14-year-old niece. I mean, at a certain point, I know we have an FBI that has not covered itself in glory, to put it mildly here. We have a team, front door of the FBI. It's like, if you've got a problem, walk in the front door, tell us the problem, and we'll shred the computer. And we're never,
it depends who you are.
Right.
If you have evidence against, like Bobulinski is in danger of getting arrested if he walks into the FBI, in my opinion.
Right, but how many different people have walked in? The Russians contact us on the Tsarnaev brothers. This guy, what's his name? The fellow with the trucking company, Uranium One. Douglas Campbell.
Right.
You have the Anthony Weiner laptop. You have the Hillary
Clinton. Look at even Patrick Byrne. I mean,
I know. Just incidents after incidents. The State Department whistleblower walks in the front door. And I was under the impression, I guess wrongly, that when you start doing international business as an American, you are, depending on the size of what you're doing and where you're doing it, the likelihood that you're being spied upon is massive.
Yes.
I mean, you have to worry about the local country, you have to worry about rival countries, you have to worry about your own country. You have a lot of latitude in the under the U.S. system to spy on Americans operating internationally. Particularly if you start, I had a passport at one time where every time I would come back to America, I would get grilled because I was Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Pakistan. It was like, passport was like that thing. And they were wondering, what the hell have you been doing? You're only like 40.
Right.
What's all this stuff going? Excuse me. So I would have thought that red flags would be going off on this whole, starting with Clinton. You know, I won't say which country, but I'm aware of a country that Bill Clinton visited when he was a governor, and he was told, don't you ever fucking come back to this country.
Why can't you tell us what country?
I can't, because the behavior was so outrageous. You know, whatever you suspect about Bill Clinton, you know, drug use, hookers, whatever. I mean, you know, on a visit to an important country. And I'll just say that it's in Asia. That's all I'll say. But,
well, so Charles, if I understand your assessment correctly, are we to believe that crackheads are not experts at operational security when it comes to IT equipment?
Oh, of course they are.
Oh.
Of course they are. But
it's a serious question. Like, I did see the interview where Rudy Giuliani was lambasting MTV Music Awards correspondent Kennedy, rightfully so, by the way, and he did say underage girls. Right. I've seen all that stuff now. So Giuliani is making that allegation.
So I looked up the law actually. Maybe we could Google just underage. The law is pretty strict, and so.
But look up what? Underage what?
Images underage.
It's going to get me arrested.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So when you see a laptop, when something comes into your possession that has, let's just say,
these repair places are very sensitive to that because you never know what's coming.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so as a guess, people are treading very carefully here because you can't circulate these images widely in the public domain. You shouldn't. And then the question becomes, you know, who actually obtained custody and control over these images? Bannon has been talking on his show that he's seen them. Giuliani says he's seen them. Carrick's seen them. Who else has seen them? Presumably, to go through this carefully, I'm no computer expert. Even I understand you've got to look a lot of different places. You can't just look at the inbox email. You've got to look at the drafts. You've got to look at the trash. You've got to look here and there.
Images folder, movies folder,
all sorts of
Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah, places could be hidden.
Tinder. Who knows where he's putting it all?
Right, and so this is the kind. Unlike the allegations against Trump, that Donald Trump, who's notoriously a neatnik, you know, he's not somebody who's going to.
Swimming in urine.
Yeah, that's not his thing. He doesn't like to shake hands with
bed,
people.
Smoking crack.
Yeah, exactly. That story was so fanciful. Basically, I have some friends who know him in some cases pretty well, and they just said, there's no way that Donald Trump would have done that.
But even that aside, there's not one element of evidence that's been presented. If someone made that allegation and said, here's a video of Donald Trump walking into the whatever Moscow hotel, you could then debate, is that him? He's walking in from behind. Where'd you get this evidence? Nothing even close to that. And they did try to address this in today's Senate hearing, where they're asking certain specific questions about why did you allow this but block this? They had no good answers, of course. So while the Democrat senators were saying, oh, this is a sham, this is a farce, this was necessary because it was the senators who were standing up for the people of America who need to hear this information and decide for themselves if the Post has credible evidence backing it.
Well, didn't we go through a Kavanaugh hearing, believe all accusers, Harvey Weinstein, believe all accusers except him and her.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Believe all accusers that we tell you, because that's just it. They are the arbiters of truth right now because they're saying, oh, well, we have fact checkers. Well, if this was a lawsuit or a criminal trial, you might have, you know, Jonathan Turley versus Alan Dershowitz, and both of them are going to think they're correct and the arbiters of what is correct, but they argue until we get down to the facts. So it's a very upsetting situation, Charles.
I think it is, but I also think we could wake up and be very disappointed on Wednesday or whenever the election's decided next week. But the market has declined precipitously starting Monday. Today, I don't know where it is at the moment, but it
was way down.
I mean, I don't know if it closed down 1,000, but what?
It did.
Really? More than 1,000?
943.
Yeah, that's not a good number. But it's only 3%. Bear in mind, the 87 crash was 21% down in a day. 21%. So, I mean, this is bad, but it's not mortal wounds. I don't like to see this, however, in the final days now going to the election, because that meathead, Hillary Clinton, is tweeting out, she has a tweet, if you go to her latest tweet, it's something like, the market is down and Mitch McConnell is holding up relief for Americans. We can't take this anymore. You know, I mean, Hillary,
tell
please.
her to go invest in cattle futures.
Yeah, exactly. When is your book on trading cattle futures going to come out?
Right.
Whatever it was.
She's like, why don't you give me your cell phone number and Instagram account, and you could be the star of the next Hunter Biden video.
Oh, boy.
She's just a wreck.
She really is.
See, the other thing that they were talking about in this Senate hearing today was this, President Trump keeps tweeting out that he wants to repeal the Communications Decency Act, Section 230. I actually don't agree with that. I think that Section 230 should exist. It's just a matter of these companies that are not adhering to let me back up. Communications, the Section 230 protection says if you operate a network, if you're Verizon or AT&T, you're not sitting there having people listening to every phone call and deciding who gets to have a phone based on what they say. But if you're Facebook and Twitter, and you say, oh, Charles put up a bad tweet, the New York Post put up a bad tweet, now you're curating the content in the same way as if you submit an article to American Thinker or the New York Post, and they say, no, we can't run this, Charles. You don't have enough evidence. We're going to get sued. Get it out of here. I think they just need to say, look, CDA 230 is staying. You guys just aren't protected by it anymore because you're editing your content. They need to put up rules like you cannot say the word, F word. You cannot say the word N word, and that's fine. That's like a rating system. But the second they start picking and choosing this tweet, the context of that, they are editors and they should be open for being sued for whatever and not protected by that.
I agree with that. But anyway, I think on the good news front, I believe that these polls that have been sold to us as gospel are in worse shape in 2020 than they were in 2016. And one way to see this is if we go to the Electoral College map for 2016, and we look at, if we can pull up one image that would allow us to go state by state.
Well, it probably
There you go, that one.
This?
That's perfect. Okay, so we look at this. An overwhelming majority of the states were red, okay? And then we ask ourselves, before we get into this,
why aren't I 50 points ahead?
Well, does Donald Trump have political accomplishments in 2020, in October 2020, that are significant?
Yeah.
And are they more significant than Obama's? Are they more significant than George W. Bush's? Are they more significant than Bill Clinton's? How far back do you have to go to come up with a president who's done more in 4 years than Donald Trump has done? So politically, he has accomplishments, something he did not have in 2016, when he nonetheless got 306 electoral college votes. Okay. Then you think about Hillary Clinton, and it pains me to do that, but you think about her, and you have to say that she had political chops. She had no private sector accomplishments to speak of, other than getting overpaid for books,
stealing
speeches, stealing money, trading on political influence. But she could at least post a political resume. She was the first lady. She was the wife of the Attorney General of Arkansas, the wife of the first lady of Arkansas, the first lady of the United States, a senator, a secretary. I mean, she had real political experience. And those who prior to Trump's presidency bought into the idea that political experience counted for something because you learned the rules of the road and how to operate in Washington, and you could
how to fit the Lincoln desk out the front door.
Right, exactly. How to to give wiring instructions to foreign governments to pay you off an offshore account, things like that. Donald Trump's presidency has demonstrated that much of the experience in Washington is actually bad experience. It's stuff that you don't want to have people from Washington D.C. So I would argue that who is a weaker candidate than Hillary Clinton? Well, than Hillary Clinton. I would argue that than Joe Biden. I would argue that Mini AOC, who is constitutionally, may not be a real person, constitutionally ineligible to vote to be president of the United States, is by far and away a stronger candidate.
Mini AOC?
Mini AOC.
But she's like 10.
I know, I'm just saying, she is, well, I mean...
I meant Gary Johnson, not Larry Johnson.
Right. So you have, I think, in Donald Trump a very strong candidate. You have in Biden a very weak candidate. You have an economy that has, I think, been not completely separated from unregulated globalism, but is being extricated from unregulated globalism. You have workers who are much better off on an after-tax basis. You have minority groups that are much better off on an after-tax basis. You have enthusiasm for the Trump campaign and the opposite, loseyasm for Biden. So then you start looking at this and you say, all right, what states might he win that he did not win in 2016? And I would argue Minnesota is one.
I was going to say, I'm looking at two right up here. Minnesota and Illinois are probably tired of their cities burning down.
Well, Illinois is a very tough one because it's so corrupt. And it's kind of like the opposite of New York. You have the Chicago voters up on the lake determining a lot, and the downstate voters tend to be conservative, whereas in New York, it's the people in the South and who are lean, heavily Democratic. It's the upstate voters. I think Minnesota is a reasonably optimistic new state for him to win. Mm-hmm. I think New Hampshire is a new state for him to win. Polls are suggesting that Virginia is a new state for him to win. Huh. And then if we go down a little bit, New Mexico, with their energy business threatened by, is another one. And Nevada, the way they like to pronounce it, is another one. So there you're talking about 6, it's 11, 21, 34, and 4, 38 more votes on a base of 306. You're up at 344.
That's awesome.
Right? And then so you can afford to lose. I don't believe he's going to lose. I don't think he's going to lose Pennsylvania.
But they're going to make us wait 3 days.
I don't think. I think the turnouts are going to be so overwhelmingly high here.
I agree with you.
People are sick and tired of being lectured to by Gruber, on Obamacare, by Obama. I mean, Obama was a saint. He was the Pied Piper of the scruffy class in 2008. People were just, they were ready to carve his face on Mount Rushmore before he was sworn in on January 20th, 2009. Exactly. Saint Obama. And you see him in these, I don't know where he was specifically, but he looked like he was standing in front of a Walmart with with a bullhorn.
He looked like he was about to get hit by a car.
But he'd get more. He probably got a bigger crowd when he was a community organizer in Chicago than he got at that rally. And, it's not like he's given a wholehearted endorsement for Biden, right? If you want to bring your vice president into the White House, you do what Reagan did with Bush, right? I mean, I think that Reagan's support for Bush was very strong. Obama did not immediately endorse Biden.
It's a pile.
It's appropriately named. I mean, that's even like a funny-looking bullhorn.
A little weak mini bullhorn.
Right? It looks like what does it look like? It looks
my first bullhorn.
Yeah.
Obama, what a dope.
Yeah.
I think Mike Moore said, you bring that to Philly, you're going to be wearing the bullhorn as a hat.
Right, as a beanie. Yeah.
Philly burning, going crazy. They had the National Guard there, but I think, they were rioting, looting. Charles, the other thing that's going on is, I can't remember if I was speaking with you about this on the phone, but Joe Biden, I think during he was talking about this conversation that Black parents are having with their children about if you get pulled over, make sure your hands are on the wheel, say yes, sir, no, sir. By the way, that's a conversation every single parent should have with every single child. Here's how you should behave around the police to make sure you don't get shot.
Well, actually, it's funny you should mention that. When I was a kid, growing up playing in Washington Square Park, there was the era of... there were gangs. They tended to be, the leather jacket gangs with the funny shoes.
They watched Warriors and decided they wanted to do that.
Right. But I can remember there was a police outreach program, the police are your friend. My mother in particular saying, listen, the police are not your enemy, they're your friends. And she made an effort to introduce us to the police. So we had an officer we could go to if there was trouble. And I mean, you do go through that because we've all been children. Some of us are still children, even though they're 77 years old, like Joe Biden. But we go through a phase when our minds are being rewired and we do stupid shit.
Right.
And we saw that time walking up 6th Avenue a number of months ago, and there were 4 or 5 kids who were probably 14, 15 acting up, trying to hit you or hit me or whatever. And of course, we just walked by and didn't engage.
Good thing we could see in reverse.
Right. So I think we're here in a moment. If we just go back to that map, if it's not too difficult.
Sure.
I got you up to 344 votes without talking about, there we go, without talking about the miracle that could happen if, let's say, in New York, people looked at this, the Berniacs, and said, we're not voting for Biden. Particularly female Berniacs, who look at this and say, no, we just can't do it. We'll tell people we're doing it, but we're not going to show up. And then meanwhile, you have the deplorables, the Reagan Democrats, the truly independents who are in the upstate communities, who have seen enough of this, the suburban people.
Suburban as well, yeah.
Have seen this and say, you know what, we're coming out in fucking droves to vote. And so if you had a mismatch in enthusiasm, a wide mismatch in enthusiasm, and then if you also had people who historically didn't vote before, and a large percentage of people in this country do not vote, all it would take would be, let's say, 5% more people voting, 10%, and then lack of enthusiasm suppressing Biden supporters, but massive support for Trump. And you could imagine, I know it's a very long shot, that a state like New York might surprise you, and then some of these other states. I think Rhode Island is a state, I can say this because my ancestor founded it, is a state whose business model is corruption.
Yeah.
That was not what my ancestor felt was the thing to do, but since then it's a hopelessly corrupt state. I doubt that Connecticut might turn. It would be hilarious if Delaware did not vote for Biden. That would be a perfect coda to the campaign. But you think about Maryland and you think about New Jersey. Maryland has a large number of people working in Washington, D.C. and retired people from government. So maybe that's a big ask. But there's a possibility that you could see the same phenomenon in New Jersey. You could see people demoralized about Biden, given all these revelations and the fact that he's actually not an authentic progressive and he's not bothering to campaign. So maybe if he's not going to campaign, I'm not going to vote. But all the people, who are really enthusiastic Trump supporters, and there are many, many people in law enforcement in New York who live in New Jersey and live in the suburbs, etc. So you could see some of this. Remember, Biden needs to get all of the blue states to lose, right?
Exactly.
And so I look at this, and maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm just talking my own game, but I would not be surprised that the final count, absent massive cheating, and I mean cheating on the level where all Trump votes are burned, and 5 times as many dead people as living voters vote in these states. I mean, absent that kind of cheating,
you still lose.
It's like that scene with, who is it, Ditka and the Bears?
Yeah, Ditka's driving the bus. Oh, the Bears are in the Indy 500. Ditka's winning. No, that's true. I just don't see how Joe Biden can possibly win. I mean, again, the cheating. People say, "Oh, cheating." We saw it right there at the Senate hearing. It's literally, I never really thought about that statement of "don't piss on me and tell me it's raining." And it means, look, it's so obvious that you're pissing on me. How could you even say it's raining? And they're doing it right there at the Senate. It's the same thing, I think. Anybody who's saying that Joe Biden is 98% ahead or whatever, there's no way, Charles.
Or that Joe Biden has a chance in Texas. I mean, Right.
I don't think it's a 93% chance that Joe Biden is going to break his hip getting off the toilet. It's like,
yeah. So
not that we wish any ill.
Well, we don't. But it's a pretty safe bet that Biden will take Washington and Oregon and California. He might get Colorado. Denver's got it's turned quite blue, whereas rural Colorado, I think, will vote for Trump. I think this map will be very interesting to look at on a county basis in the final analysis. Now, when you look at this map, I don't know if you can get 2016 on a county basis, but it's kind of stunning. Here you see a lot of blue, but the overwhelming majority of counties in America voted for Trump. I mean, way higher than it looks like in this map. So
here we have something called Brilliant Maps, Charles, by county.
Yeah. There you go. Is that 16? Yeah, okay, look at that. I mean, you've got...
Boy. I mean...
You have, voters in
How did they come up with this story that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote?
She did win the popular vote.
How is that possible?
Well, because a lot of these counties in here are thinly populated. So, so you've got a large concentration of people in 20 cities. But really, state by state, county by county, there's incredible support for law and order, for basic
people who aren't criminals. Yes,
right, for protecting the citizens as opposed to turning us all into subjects ruled by technocrats and experts and corrupt people. I mean, there's a certain amount of we're Americans, we cherish our freedom and independence. So this is before we get into the amazing change in ethnic attitudes towards Trump in 2016, 2020. In 2016, he did not have very high at all black support. I think he got 8% of the black vote all in. Hispanic support was very light. Subcontinent Indian American support was overwhelmingly for Clinton. I think a lot of that has changed in ways that the swamp does not want to admit, because it could well be, if this is a fair enough election and the results are properly counted, this could be the death knell of the Democratic Party. That we look at all this caterwauling from the pundits and the MSDNC and the mainstream media saying Biden's always been ahead, all getting set now for Plan B, which is when Trump wins, particularly if he retakes the House and increases in the Senate, should that happen, then we're in for riots. Be riots right through until...
They started early.
Yeah, that's right.
You get a 1 week jump on it. But Charles, isn't that something that we hear kind of every election cycle, that this election is going to be the end of the Democratic Party?
Well, it truly is. I mean, the Democratic Party that used to stand for fair treatment for workers, that was patriotic. I mean, Scoop Jackson, the senator out in, I think it was Washington State, was your conservative Democrat. That party is finished, right? And that was a party that could have broad appeal in this country. Yeah. The second you start investing a scatterbrained bartender as the leader of the progressive, in quotes, wing of a party, with really no accomplishments to date other than somehow winning an election, with virtually no experience.
Well, I don't know about that. She's got a lot of good TikTok videos. That counts as an accomplishment. She has a great smile.
She has a decent, I don't know. I mean, it kind of looks pretty cockeyed to me. But, and it's not about her looks, frankly. It's about her ideas. I mean, her ideas are just...
Oh, well, those suck.
Those are stone cold stupid. And really for, bug-eyed bartender, for commentators to lend her any sort of credibility demeans. I mean, you look at the way they laud this goofy person and suggest that Amy Coney Barrett is somebody that no Democratic senator voted to confirm Amy Coney Barrett. And I remember gritting my teeth through the Obama years, watching the Republicans actually do the confirmation process the way it's supposed to be done. The way it's supposed to be done is the president. One of the reasons you run so hard, Joe, are you listening? One of the reasons you campaign for president is if you win, you have the amazing right to appoint judges to the bench subject to the advice and consent, not to the approval. The advice and the consent. We'll take your advice, but you're going to consent. And the Democrats have turned that in. No.
But if they don't consent, what's the point of consent if they don't have the ability to not give it?
That's fair enough, but there's a difference between, the presumption is the check and balance on all this is that...
Consent is a different word than approval.
Right. The presumption is that a president will appoint somebody who's uniquely well qualified for the position. Right? And if you don't believe the president's going to do that, you don't vote for him.
Right.
Or her. And so I think to Donald Trump's immense credit, he, I think, is one of the first presidents, maybe there were others, who put out a list of people that he would choose from for the Supreme Court, thereby giving the voter a chance to get
heads up.
Yeah, because there was suspicion that he might be not as tough as he needs to be, not as much of a constitutionalist as he needed to be. So Trump has done that. He's shown the type of person that we're going to get as a Supreme Court justice and other justices, whereas dopey, crooked Joe Biden refuses to tell us who he might appoint, or indeed whether he will even keep the hallowed precept of having only 9 justices on the Supreme Court.
That's crazy.
And we put up with that. The mainstream journalists say, well, I suppose that's okay. We'll hold Trump to one standard and let Biden do whatever he wants.
Why don't we just add an unlimited number of Congress people until every American is in there yelling at each other?
Right. Yeah.
Why do we need representatives? Let's just jam 300 million people in this room.
One big Zoom call. You're a representative.
Yeah.
You're a representative.
Well, there's Joe in his dangling feet studio. I don't understand why they didn't just make everything in the room 1 foot lower.
Yeah, I don't like those chairs. I don't understand why the desk is so high either.
I guess it's because the background, probably that stuff on the wall, is at a fixed height, and they wanted it a certain, relationship to him.
Yeah, but when we think about this campaign, if people can, I'm delighted not to be a political expert because I don't want to be an expert at lying. And which is, I think, what politics is mostly about. But when we look at the performance of the Democrats in the 15-16 cycle, where they rigged, they rigged their own primaries, they attempted to rig the election, they've been resisting ever since. They're now saying that Donald Trump needs to tell us now that he will respect the results next week of 2020. And my attitude would be, why does he have to do that, Hillary? You still can't accept the fact that how you've resisted, you've impeached, you've defamed him, you've done all sorts of things, and he's supposed to just say, well, if he loses, which he's not going to, I don't think, that he has to accept the results, and because you can't.
Charles, I'm sorry to sort of fixate on this picture, but it's remarkable. Viewers can't really see, but Joe Biden's set is not better than what we have going on here, and in fact, he's got it built rather precariously on these Pelican cases. That's sort of like his whole entire platform.
That's right.
Somebody walks by, its whole thing's falling over.
That's right. Oh man, it's really kind of sad. So we should probably give a shout out to both Rudy's Common Sense and Bannon's War Room Pandemic. I was struck by when I saw Bannon's War Room Pandemic this morning. I saw the first bit of it. There's Common Sense. It'll show you the number of viewers or views that the videos have. There you go. Just try it. 461.
Oops.
Yeah, it has 37,000 views. Now, this is a site that is very, very heavily supported. It's not simply his War Room Pandemic. It's also, he's not just on YouTube. He's on.
Why does he only have 121,000 subscribers?
I know. So it's interesting to me. Well, he's only been around he's only done this for a year, I think.
Huh.
So here's a guy who's a Hollywood expert. He's a producer. Was the chief strategist for Donald Trump. Arguably, he should get a big measure of credit for the surprise come from behind victory in 15-16. And he only has this many subscribers and views, which is not orders of magnitude different than what you have.
Well, Well, I would think somebody with that level of notoriety who's been on Fox News and everything, he is getting a lot of views here, 67,000 views a day, 39. Right. But you're right, it's not like this is 40 million and we're getting 1,000.
Right, right. So I think that's an interesting thing. And these...
He needs better thumbnails, Charles.
He does. Maybe we should send him an email.
Yeah.
Send him an email thumbnail. But he is, I think, emulating the recently departed Don Imus in the format of the show. And it's actually, I enjoy watching it now. If we then also turn to Rudy's common sense, I frankly think that, has there been a new one? He's got more subscribers.
Well, he's definitely paid attention to improving his production quality, because when it first started, he had this like bar mitzvah DJ microphone and like a pretty crappy setup that's gotten a lot better, thankfully. But his information has been solid from the beginning. And, you know, he's got a lot of experience presenting and speaking publicly and stuff. So I'd watch this all the time. Wow, this thing's up to 800,000 views.
Yeah, and when we think about Rudy Giuliani, I mean, the notion that Kennedy, who I actually think Kennedy can be pretty amusing. I don't know what her real name is, but
I don't think she's actually
ever been a U.S. attorney or...
Right, she's like an MTV person who got on the news.
It's like, and you know, she's sitting there asking a former U.S. attorney who's prosecuted 5,000 cases, a mayor, the president's lawyer.
It wasn't he the district attorney? He was like the assistant district attorney.
Yeah, I think something like that as well. You're asking a guy who's 75 years old. You're treating him like he's a child, and you know, does Rudy get to say, now wait a minute, you know, this is not a show about the best hip hop or the best musical or whatever. I mean, we're talking about rules of evidence. Have you looked at any of this evidence? Oh no, not yet. You know,
right?
So I mean.
Well, and she even made a point of saying that the last time they were on camera together was at the MTV Music Awards. But obviously, when the mayor of New York goes on to something like that, it's because it represents, you know, a financial... People are coming from all over the country to stay at hotels, and it's almost like the Oscars for New York or something. He doesn't really care what Kennedy has to say about anything.
Well, but I don't know if you read this article or got a chance to listen to what she said. I mean, what she did was outrageous.
I agree.
As you well know, when you invite a guest on a show, there can be a discussion about, you know, what's the topic, why am I going to come on? He has other things he could do. And he started in and was making a case, and she interrupted him and made the false equivalency of Rudy is just like Christopher Steele. And that's an outrageous... I mean, if you're going to make that allegation, you should, I think, be fair in the way in which you discuss having Rudy on the show. We want you on the show because we believe that you're no better than Christopher Steele. And you know that would go about ixnay on that one. And Christopher Steele, we know from Alex Thompson, we know from other, you know, the UK guy, we know from other people. Christopher Steele was like... Peter Sellers and being there. I mean, he's not an accomplished spy, and his file, we now know, was comprised of Russian-sourced, in theory, garbage that the FBI knew at the time that it was swearing out FISA warrants was garbage, and that had been reinforced by leaking elements of it into the mainstream press. So that the documents could say, yeah, this claim makes sense. Twitter's tweeting about it. So-and-so is writing about it. It must be. It was just a circular dumpster fire. And to suggest for this person who's not really an investigative journalist,
no, to
start down that track with a Rudy Giuliani a week before the election, when he's actually breaking major news, is quite frankly a firing offense, honestly. I mean, I
think they wanted her to do that. The thing is also interesting, Charles, is that this sort of speaks directly to what we brought up earlier, which is, you know, when Christopher Steele brought that story out, let's presume he had no evidence. Well, he did have no evidence. But if it provoked someone in Moscow to say, hey, I'm the desk clerk at the hotel and I saw this happening and I have family in the United States, so I wanted to come forward. Here's the registry. I'm definitely going to get fired, but Trump was there. These two women who I know are hookers are there. Nothing like that ever happened.
Right.
Here, Rudy Giuliani brought out his evidence, and then within like a day, Business partners are coming forward. Guys who are in federal prison are being moved because their lives are in danger. Right. Trump right away said, this is absurd. It never happened. There's no evidence, and no evidence was presented. Hunter Biden has not made a similar refutation saying that this isn't my laptop, this isn't my picture, somebody forged this, the claim doesn't even make sense.
Right.
Because if someone's going to say this is hacked Russian disinformation, I would watch a broadcast where Kennedy brought on someone perhaps with skills that I have to point out how these digital images of Hunter Biden could be doctored. Show me a close-up where this pixel doesn't match, the resolution of these two things don't match, so it's a composite. Nothing like that has been done. They just say, oh, this is Russian disinformation. Adam Schiff said so. Next topic.
Exactly. It's really quite outrageous. And then within the larger context of the Mueller investigation, Mueller's motives are pure. Comey's motives are pure. Schiff's motives are pure in the eyes of the journalists. But and all the Democrats and the other commentators. But anything Trump may want to do or Flynn may want to do is obviously suspect.
Yeah.
And once Mueller does the faceplant with the nothing burger, then what we do is we whip up allegations from some lower level person who can't be named even today, which I don't understand that at all, who makes flamboyant claims against the President of the United States that trigger a spectacle in the House run by Nancy Pelosi, and ultimately we end up in a trial where he's not convicted, and nobody has really pulled on the strings of this guy's background, his connections to Obama. I'd like to see, if we had a real FBI, I'd love to see the emails flying around about how this guy, and it's a standard modus operandi. You take a young dope who may have a decent resume for whatever reason because he lies his way into Yale Law School or something like that, or an equivalent, and you say, look, the President of the United States needs you to make history. He wants to make history together with you. You've got to make these allegations. And stars in the eyes, the guy says, okay, this is great. We'll protect you. It's fantastic. That's not whistleblowing. That's ass protecting. That's a cover-up.
You want to talk about stars in the eyes, Charles? Do you know who this guy is?
B-Rock?
No, the other guy.
Is that Rob Walker? Oh,
no,
Robert
Gibbs?
That's
the president of television right there.
Is it really?
Yes.
Wow.
The guy who shut down the Crowdsource the Truth YouTube channel, actually going to be having a hearing with the president of television in just 2 days. I don't know if he'll be there, but this is the guy who's the president and CEO of the Emmys, who separately runs a private political consulting firm called Sharp Things. And he was a principal at Twitter. He was the head of news, politics, and elections at Twitter from 2010 to 2016. Keep in mind, Charles, Twitter went public in 2012. So I don't know if he has a lot of stock in Twitter, but this is the guy who issued a strike based on his conclusory false judgment that I had violated the Emmys copyright. He shut down this YouTube channel for more than a month. He's cost me now several $1,000s in legal fees, and we were just getting started. So I don't know why he thinks he's not a political operative, but people should also keep in mind that when they're watching the Emmys, their tax dollars are funding it in part because it's a 501c3 tax-exempt corporation, and he, as the CEO, correct me if I'm wrong, should not be engaging in partisan political activity, right?
Not in the name of the charity.
But if he puts a picture of himself with the Emmy and says he's the president of the Emmys on his political organization, does that cross a line?
I think it crosses the line. Yeah, I think it definitely crosses the line. Who's the guy to the right there?
I don't know.
Looks like a Ukrainian thug.
Maybe people in the crowd will recognize this guy. I don't know. He's looking for Jack Dorsey's barber.
Exactly. School of Scruffy.
Yeah.
Surprised these guys are wearing ties.
Well, it's easier to choke each other out with at some point, I guess. Who knows what they're up to?
So we have just scant days until the election. I'd be curious to see. I mean, it's funny. I've been approached now by various and sundry foreign media outlets that are curious to get a read on what's going on. I think even people who are reflexively pro-globalist are beginning to say, now, in our country, we generally expect candidates to actually go on the trail and answer questions, and we're just wondering, what is Biden's approach here? He hasn't answered. I mean, if you go back from a mathematical standpoint and you say, all right, let's say that the final days of the campaign began after Labor Day, right? And let's say everybody has to sleep for 8 hours. We can even say 10 hours if you want, including time to prepare and have breakfast or whatever.
I don't think Hunter got the memo that you're not supposed to do white after Labor Day.
Right, that's right. Wear white. You're supposed to wear something.
Yeah, he didn't get either memo. Right. He's like, oh.
But if you do that math and you say, in theory, you could be up 14 hours a day,
Particularly with that crack.
But I'm saying if you're Biden, senior. And then ask how much of that, add up all those hours, 7 days a week, how much time of the available time has this Biden guy spent asking America for its vote? And it's pathetic. I don't think it may not even be 5% of the waking hours. I mean, this guy is so entitled, so arrogant, that he thinks, like Hillary Clinton, he should just, be appointed president. Why? He's raised billions of dollars. The next question is,
has he?
Act Blue is siphoning billions of dollars. As a guess, It's from the Chinese Communist Party being washed through Act Blue as a guess. And you got to ask yourself, how is it reasonable? What kind of a message does it send that our system has come to this? That this walking zombie who has decided not to campaign, who doesn't know how to tell the truth, who is on both sides of most important issues, claims he's a progressive. He's an inside the Beltway hack who we don't know how much money he's diverted, let's just say, from foreign governments and not explaining it. We have no sense as to how he's amassed his wealth. We have no idea whether he'd wake up to make an important decision if the phone rang at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so for this guy to win and Trump to lose is not going to send an excellent message to the future. It's going to say, well, he got away with that.
Yeah.
Next time I'm going to run from I'll get a yacht. I'll be out, with Bunga Bunga, the guy from Berlusconi. I'll be out there, whatever, for the summer and, just dial it all in. It just sends a horrible message. So I sincerely hope people watching the show will do their homework. And if you are a Bernie supporter, I hope you will not vote for Joe Biden, really. Because you cannot look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm going to vote for this kind of corporate insanity and greed and corruption.
What if you're a quartermaster working the second floor of the ladies' lingerie department at the thing? Come on.
You turn on the record player.
The Victrola.
And you buy yourself a shotgun and you shoot somebody.
Yeah, just fire 2 shots out the balcony.
Hold the phone. Isn't that corn pop on the line?
Oh man, Joe Biden is funny for all the wrong reasons.
So if you're a Biden supporter, I hope you won't vote. A Bernie supporter.
I hope the Biden supporters won't vote.
I also hope they won't vote. Exactly. They're going to vote.
Just stay home.
Yeah, the dead voters.
The coronavirus is way too dangerous.
Yeah, the dead voters have got you covered. Don't worry. You don't need to worry about that.
And it's also important that people in Florida's 21st district get out and vote for Laura Loomer. And our viewers who can't make it to the polls or aren't registered in Florida can still support Laura on her website, Laura Loomer for Congress. Click on the donate button and help Laura make history. I think it is important that we have her there in Congress to counteract the insanity of the socialist squad, Charles.
I agree, and I think it's also important. Laura's a fine candidate, a legendary candidate. I think it's important that people vote in economically literate down ballot across the country. I mean, Lindsey Graham, I don't know if he's going to win or lose, but he is an incredible disappointment. In Georgia, you've got Doug Collins, I think is a fine candidate. I don't like Kelly Loeffler at all. Whether you're a Republican or Democrat, you look down the ticket, you want people in with the amount of debt piled on this country, the challenges we face, not simply from COVID, but other issues. You want people who understand money, not like Biden understands money. Just like, give me your money.
10% goes over to this account.
To the big guy. You want people who actually understand how to generate revenue, how to keep costs under control, how to invest wisely, and how to make sure that we have a team in here that actually will get the job done from January 20th, 2021 through 25. Donald Trump has accomplished an amazing amount in face of unusual resistance, I would argue criminal resistance.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine what he can do with the wind behind his back and a team, a deep team in Congress, in the Senate.
The only point I would slightly disagree on is I have not been disappointed at all in Lindsey Graham. I knew he was a piece of crap from the jump.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I don't know if, I guess he's running against the Democrats, so.
What was going on with his hands the other day? People had pictures of his hands all bruised or something.
I don't know. Was that McConnell or
was it? I don't know.
I think it was McConnell.
Oh, Mitch McConnell. I almost can't tell those two guys apart. But it reminded me of that scene. What's the movie where Jack Nicholson is playing Whitey Bulger? And it's The Departed, I think. And Leo DiCaprio comes to talk to him about something, and he like smashes his hands with a pool cue, and he's like screaming and everything.
You raised an excellent point we didn't cover.
Yeah.
Going back, we'll close out with this. Going back to the august team of Rob Walker and Hunter Biden,
right,
and John Kerry's stepson, and the fourth one is Whitey Bulger's nephew.
Yeah.
And it's like the beginning of a joke. You know, a crackhead walks into the bar with a...
it's like season 3 of The Sopranos.
I know.
Yeah, we got the vice president's son in the investment company.
Right. I mean,
Jim Bulger.
Yeah. You got Jim Bulger, you got the crackhead, you got, you know, the stepson, Chris Heinz.
Whoa.
Yeah, these are tough guys.
Well, this is Whitey Bulger. But isn't it interesting, though, that he was in federal prison for so many years and then magically, like 2019 or 2000...
Gets outplaced to death.
Well, he's killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When was that exactly? Let's go down the picture. October 30th, 2018.
Yeah. Seemed like they were cleaning up loose ends, it seems to me, Charles.
I think so.
And
also, I said it was the final thing, but one final excellent point, encouraging point. You saw the Nexium cult leader is sentenced to 120 years in prison.
Yes.
And he's not negative 60 years old, so that's not going to be good.
Well, it reminded me of Savannah Guthrie, where she was like, oh, you know, isn't it ridiculous that all these Trump supporters and supporters of the 17th letter want to eradicate satanic child pedophile rapists? And it's like, well, wait a minute. Haven't we seen a lot of those kind of people going to jail? Why is that a bad thing?
Doesn't this a school of Dorsey? I mean, it's sort of like...
They're just weirdo, freaked out, like, you know, who is branding people and starting these sex cults and trafficking people and raping people? I mean, these guys are huge weirdos, and having online communities that want to track them and whatever. I'm not saying that people should listen to anonymous things, but the way that Savannah Guthrie posed that question, frankly, I thought she looked ridiculous.
Well, I thought she looked ridiculous from the jump,
yes,
from before
exactly.
the interview. But anyway,
I wasn't disappointed in her, but I thought she looked ridiculous. So, Charles, Sunday, I guess we're getting to that point where perhaps the weather will dictate what we're able to do. It's been getting colder. The all-intelligent phone seems to think it's going to be close to 60 and nice, so maybe we'll be on the streets on Sunday.
We'll do a walk around the street canvassing potential voters.
Yeah. I don't know about
not
that.
Wearing they said.
Yeah, it's a good way to kiss the canvas if you go out among the BLM people.
That's right.
Well, I think it's been an excellent show. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to remind people that they can help me combat some of the social engineering and some of the ridiculous lawsuits coming from people who seem to have stars in their eyes when they look at Barack Obama, but they're not political operatives. People can go to crowdsourcethetruth.com and support the Counter Lawfare Fund. You can also support the show by becoming a monthly sponsor at subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I found out that there is a component of what we're using here that's registered in Libya. So the guys that are developing this video server for me, it's actually something to do with Patreon. that's got a Libyan URL. I don't think the servers are in Libya, but it's got, you know, to get that LY at the end. Like YouTube uses servers in Belgium so that the
BE.
Exactly. So I think they're doing it for that reason. But whatever. These guys are really digging into the server development, and the entire sponsor exclusive library will be restored to that new server once it's complete. The sponsors of the show are helping me create that, and it's really important that we have these avenues to exercise the First Amendment, because now we have these sort of supra-governmental or extra-governmental overlords who decide what is a fact and what isn't.
Do you mean supra or stupra?
Stupra. Do they realize how Orwellian they are, sitting up there on the view screen telling everybody how they're going to decide what a fact is?
I mean, look, I understand it if you are a publisher. I can understand a publisher making a decision. You have
for
the right
their brand.
Yeah, you have the absolute right to go in a city park and say whatever you want, but you don't have an absolute right to come on the New York Times and be published. You just don't. And so I could see that distinction, but that's not what they're doing. They want the best of all possible worlds. Yeah. One thing I also should just mention, your interview with Patrick Byrne. If people have not seen that, it's really worth digging in to what he has to say and his story, because I think it's quite fascinating, and indeed I wouldn't mind having a conversation with him live.
Well, sure, yeah. I definitely hope I have an opportunity to speak to him again. And it was in my mind that I wanted to have him on this show, but first I had some questions I wanted to get through, just in terms of, you know, because this whole thing, a bell went off in my head when he started talking about Maria Butina, because I don't know that I necessarily keyed into that part when I saw him on Fox News last year. And then I realized that this was all stuff that George Webb had been talking about before I ever encountered him. I just wanted to kind of feel that out. But I would love for you guys to talk, because there's going to be a litany of things that you know a lot more about than I do that's right on his level. So I will contact his assistant and try and get him on for an interview.
Great, Jason. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you, Charles, and thanks to everybody for watching. I will be back tomorrow. See you then.